Welcome to the ELLICSR Kitchen, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Jeremy Capone. I'm the wellness chef here.
And I'm Stephanie Gladman, one of the registered dietitians. Welcome.
And we have a special guest today. This is Sarah Khan. She is the Community Engagement Manager for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society of Canada. So thank you for coming today. A little round of applause.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'll just get started with sharing a little bit of information about our nutrition and resources. So firstly, at the organization, we have an information resource center. You can access a free registered dietitian as a patient or even as a caregiver, and they offer nutritional counseling. So that's available on our website at ELLICScanada.org. And secondly, we have a food and nutrition fact sheet. So really good tips about food safety, what to eat if you're immunocompromised, and just good nutrition overall. And then most recently, we've come out with some nutrition podcasts, also designed and sort of run by a dietitian. So I really encourage you to check out our website and turn to those nutrition resources.
That's exciting.
Thank you.
Everything is on podcast now. I love it. So
That's great.
we'll have to check that out.
Good tools.
So thank you, Sarah, for coming.
Yeah.
And,
So we figured for today's class, since eating well obviously is important for everybody, especially those who are going through treatment. Really important to eat well, and even I say during, but also after, in terms of keeping up with energy levels. Obviously, food affects your mood and how you're feeling on a day-to-day. Now, with certain treatments, they can cause some side effects. And so one of the ones that we see the most within the leukemia and lymphoma cancers is appetite loss. There can be some weight gain and also fatigue. Okay. So those are the kind of the key that we're going to talk about today, and always food safety is very important. So we're going to kind of pick up on, as we go through the recipes, on certain things to really focus on, because for people going through treatment, their immune system can be compromised. So really important to make sure that being food safe to decrease the risk of food poisoning. So with our first recipe, we're going to start with looking at foods to help when you don't really have an appetite. And that can be caused by, the side effects that you're experiencing or different taste changes. And so we really focus on making every bite count.
Yeah. So we have a pretty exciting one today. And again, with all of our recipes, we try to tie in the season whenever we can.
Yeah.
It was looking for a while that we were headed straight for fall, but the weather is sort of picking us back into summer. So this will be just a nice one to keep on hand. You don't have to make it yet, but we're making some pumpkin croquettes. So croquettes, there's sort of these really nice kind of French mashed potato, usually fried, crispy on the outside, soft on the inside, very, very tasty. We're going to do sort of our take on that, and we're going to use one of our favorite orange vegetables, and we're going to go with pumpkin. Now, this can be done with pumpkin, it can be done with squash, any of those, or even sweet potato. Any of those orange vegetables work really, really well with this. We're actually using a Japanese pumpkin today. It's called a Kabocha Squash. But one of those things one of those tips that we'd like to offer, especially anytime working with harder vegetables, does anyone try to cut through butternut squash or pumpkin? It can be a challenge. Yes, I'm seeing a lot of head nods. Yes, it's a harder vegetable. If you're feeling tired, exactly. If you're feeling tired, it takes a lot of energy to cut through. It's not the safest vegetable to cut through as well. Anything that's round and hard and you're trying to chase it around a cutting board, probably not the best thing in the world. Acorn squash, yeah, these are really harder vegetables. So there's a couple things you can do. And these are sort of little cheats that can really help if you do have fatigue, especially. The first one is buy frozen.
Yeah,
we love using frozen fruits and vegetables in our kitchen.
Also just as nutritious as fresh. So it's picked at the peak of its freshness, and then it's processed in a certain way that locks in the nutrients. There's been tons of studies done where they compare the nutrition from frozen and fresh, so really good option. You know, obviously when fruit or vegetables are in season, you can go for those, but they also tend to be cheaper, so we're a fan.
They're great, and you can get butternut squash now. They're fantastic. All the prep's already done for you, so that would work really well with this. Or if you do want to, you know, try some different squash, again, you go to the grocery store now and you're starting to see more and more different varieties appear, which are amazing. Let the oven do the work. So what I do is take them whole, wash them well, no prep involved. Maybe just poke it a couple times with a fork, but that's it. Don't dress it, no oil, no seasoning, nothing. Just go right into the oven, and I bake that whole, and it should be in your recipes as well, but I bake that whole for about 60 minutes to 90 minutes, depending on your oven, 375, until it softens. And so this is the Kabocha Squash. This is what it looks like. You may have seen it before, really dark green on the outside, kind of looks like a donut, like kind of flattened like that. But this will work with any squash, like I mentioned, but after cooking in the oven, no, as long as you poke it with a fork, at worst it might crack a little bit on you, which is fine. But I mean, taking a knife now through this is like, yeah, super soft. It's like butter. Really, really easy. And then at this point here, I mean, you scoop out the seeds, and then like the flesh of the pumpkin, the squash is super soft and ready to go. So this is going to be much, much easier to prepare. This is also a great way to do some prep in advance, especially if you're doing it for somebody. You can, you know, cook the squash like this, take this out and freeze it in a freezer bag. This will keep in the freezer for a long time, and then you use it for soups, or you use it for, you know, a rice dish, or the croquettes that we're making today, right out of the freezer, and it's even quicker for you. So, you know, when I do it, I'll throw like 5-6 squash in there, turning on the oven, and might as well use all the energy, bake them all, and then freeze what I don't use. So we did one ahead of time, and I just scooped out the squash or the pumpkin for you. It's got this really, really nice orange color, and then just you can mash it up with a fork. The reason I use this squash in particular is that the water content is much lower than a butternut squash per se. Now it'll work with a butternut squash, but I find that because it is a little bit drier, it holds up better to baked goods, like putting that in like a cake or like a pie or a bread or something like this. It holds its texture a little bit better. So if you've never tried it before, they're great. Give it a shot, nice and sweet. And that's what it looks like at this point. So now we're gonna dress this up. So Sarah, I'm gonna get you to help me here.
Sure.
So like Stephanie mentioned, we're maximizing calories and protein. We wanna make every bite count. So we're gonna add some fun ingredients here. So we have some cheese.
So do we have a spoon, or are we adding all of it?
Yeah, spoon would be helpful. And you can add all of that. It's about a cup.
And I wanted to say, you know, during treatment and cancer itself can actually increase your body's needs for needing more protein and more calories. So for certain people who don't have an appetite, you know, figuring out when the best time you want to be like when is the time you're the most hungry, or you know, looking at your likes and dislikes, that would be like, that's the best thing to do, because it's really important to get those calories in. So this specific recipe is bite-sized because we like to focus on, you know, just like easy things that you could kind of pop in your mouth that don't require so much preparation, like when you're making, and also doing batch cooking, so making a bunch in advance. And so cheese is a really good protein option. For those who might be lactose intolerant, you might want to choose kind of a lactose-free version. And you know, we do say having calcium is really important as well for your bones. So those are some of the nutrients that you want to make sure you're getting. So having about 2 to 3 servings of dairy foods a day is something we want to aim for. So this is a great option.
So we have that in there. Now we're going to add some flavors. So I love sage with squash or pumpkin. Works really well. Any herb that you like, any flavors that you like, you can add. This is completely customizable, okay? We're making it today, so you have no choice. But at home, you can change it up. Going along with the flavor, we're gonna add a couple more things. We're adding some ground ginger and some ground cinnamon. Again, just some warming spices, very fall-ish. No, we don't want to think about fall yet, but we can't deny it. Yeah, so yeah, really, really nice aroma. But if you wanted to make it a little bit spicier, go ahead. You know what? You can add some chilies in there or something. It is more of a savory dish, so anything would work really well.
What about salt?
Yes, good question. So
there we go.
we are going to add a little bit of salt. Now, the one thing to remember about salt is that it is a flavor enhancer. It doesn't actually add flavor itself. So as long as you have ingredients that already have a lot of flavor, all that salt is doing is going to be picking up those flavors and just making them pop a little bit more. So we don't have to be afraid to use the salt, just in moderation. We don't really need a lot because we have the sage and the cinnamon and the squash.
And also to remember, we did add cheese, so cheese tends to have a little bit more sodium and that salty flavor. It's a good question because, for general recommendations, we always tell people limit your salt. For more heart health reasons, sodium tends to increase blood pressure, which could turn into hypertension. But when we're talking about appetite loss, right, for some people who are experiencing vomiting or diarrhea as a side effect for their treatment or maybe medications, that's a lot of sodium being lost by the body. So actually for those people, you'd want to not be kind of stingy with your sodium. So it really depends on the person.
All right, so we're going to add an egg to help bind.
Which is a great option for adding more protein as well.
Yes, absolutely. And you can just, mix that up in there. Thanks, Sarah. And one thing to keep in mind too, Stephanie did, mention the importance of food safety. And food safety is always important in the kitchen, but especially more so if you're immune compromised, right? So a couple things to note here. Number one, the cheese, right? We're using a pasteurized cheese.
Right.
It's a cheddar. It's not a moldy cheese. Anything that's, I guess, moldy or soft rinds or unpasteurized. Probably
and it will always say on that label. So if you're, for example, going to like a food market where the label sometimes, like the packaging, isn't marked on that package, I would advise not buying that type of cheese. So really making sure that it's pasteurized, and this is a process. Pasteurization is a process to kill the bacteria that can develop in the food. So yeah, that's one thing. Also the best before dates. So really making sure, especially if you're immune compromised, to really make sure you're doing that. And then in terms of any fruit or vegetable, Jeremy put it in the oven, and although we're not eating the skin, really important to make sure that you're washing. Okay, it doesn't have to be with soap, but just under warm water, and making sure that you're getting rid of kind of any dirt or particles that might be on the outside.
Yeah, great point. And we're doing everything in a bowl. We're not working with animal products. We do have an egg there, however. So working clean is really, really important. You want to avoid any cross-contamination. If I had, let's say, some egg that fell on my cutting board, make sure you wash that right away. You don't want to be sort of cutting anything on that afterwards, right? Sure. That looks good. The last thing is a little bit of, you can either use breadcrumb or this is just ground almonds because we want it to, it's, not necessary, but for a little added feature, we want to make it gluten-free.
Right, and also it's adding some healthy fats, right? So all nuts really contain those unsaturated fats that are good for heart health, and they're also higher in calories. So again, trying to really make every bite count.
We're gonna have it all.
So does this add flavor or texture, or what's like the purpose of? For
sure. So you're going to definitely get a little bit of flavor from the almonds as well. Because it's ground so fine, you're probably not going to get the texture from it. But it's really to absorb any excess moisture. Now you can
it was
see
a little liquidy.
A little bit after the egg, right? So breadcrumb traditionally would do the same thing. You put a little bit of breadcrumb in there, and that would absorb the moisture. But the ground almonds would do the same thing there.
And then from a nutrition point of view, it's adding the proteins, fiber, and fat.
Yeah. Okay, so we mix that all in. All right, so that is our mixture right here, right? Still looks really nice, very orange. And we're gonna turn these out into our little croquettes, right? I think Sarah looks a little worried. She's like, I don't want to get my hands in there right now. So you can either do them, you know, by hand. A little bit of olive oil actually works if you put it on your hand ahead of time. Helps to prevent some of the sticking, or to save you from getting dirty.
Thank you.
Pick up one of these things. These are incredibly handy. They're, melon ballers are like small little ice cream scoops. These are great for any of these like small little bite snacks portions that you're making. If you're doing like falafel or you're doing, you know, something like croquettes or small little mini slider burgers. These are really, really good. So we're gonna use that. And what I want you to do is scoop a little bit of time, and we're gonna empty it out onto our plate here. I'm actually gonna come up here, guys. And you can use breadcrumb to coat them, or we're using pumpkin seeds. Now again, this is an extra touch. You do not have to go this far. If you have breadcrumb in your pantry, use breadcrumb. That's fine. But these are just chopped pumpkin seeds that are gonna give us the texture of breadcrumb, and perfect. And just dump a couple in there.
And we've also, again, added it for those unsaturated fats, and so it's increasing the calories too. So that was another reason why we decided to go with the pumpkin seeds.
Beautiful. So you can see Sarah's just like, see how easy they come out, and you don't have to get dirty.
Perfect shape.
And so just dropping it into either your breadcrumb, or this is our pumpkin seed mixture. We're just gonna sprinkle some on, pat them down like this, and you can kind of gently roll them around in the pumpkin seed, and then put them onto your baking sheet lined with parchment. And so, you know, you can roll them into a little golf ball, or usually they're a little more like cylindrical. I like these little patties.
And you could add them to salads. You could take them on the go as a snack. Really, so many options.
All right, so you can see they're pretty easy. If you have someone to work with you, that's the best case scenario. Yeah, because one person can just get in there, the other person can scoop. If not, keep one hand clean and you get one hand dirty. Because otherwise, if you keep mixing around, it's just going to get really, really messy in the kitchen. So you can see I'm just kind of doing this with one hand, very, very gently. Now, it is still soft, it's squash, right? So these you want to be a little delicate with, but that's exactly, you know, what you want here. And you have those pumpkin seeds on the top there that are going to provide some really nice crunch and texture. So these you can put in the refrigerator if you want, just to firm up a little bit. Otherwise, they can go right into the oven. We're doing a little bit of higher heat, so you're going to bring it up to a 400, 425, and we're going to cook them for about 10 minutes, just until they're nice and golden brown on the outside. You want the egg to cook through, right? You may have forgotten, like there's mostly vegetables in here, but there is an egg as well. We want to make sure that that's cooked through.
So you definitely want to cook.
Yeah. So.
And you don't need to grease the pan for this?
Oh, no.
It just soaks through, or?
Parchment paper. Parchment paper is our lifesaver here,
Right.
So, you know, that's a great question, because especially speaking, you know, when we're talking about fatigue, the cooking process can be challenging in itself, but cleanup can also be challenging, sometimes even more challenging, especially if you have to start scrubbing pans. So using things to sort of make that task a little bit easier is helpful. And the parchment paper is a non-stick. It's fantastic. So you bake it, nothing sticks, you throw that out, easy wash on the pan, and you're good to go.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. So these can also be frozen in little bites, and that's why the portion size, we made it a little bit bigger, so that you can freeze a lot of these. And what I would do is actually freeze them just like this on a flat pan for about 2 hours, just until they're solid, and then transfer them into a Ziploc bag, and they'll stay individual pieces, and you can warm up what you need at that time. Yeah.
Sure.
So we put ours in the oven, and this is not an oven, this is a refrigerator, but what a confusing one. And just to show you what they look like. So we did a few. So that's what you're going for. So really, really nice and golden brown on the outside. Now,
Very fall.
yeah, and so no, these are small bites, right? And so that's the idea is, you know, with loss of appetite, if you can only have a small amount, these will pack quite a bit of protein and calories in there. Now, these they'll be very soft when you take them out when they're really hot, which make them a little challenging to eat. So you can just let them cool for about 5 minutes and they'll actually firm up pretty nicely. And they'll be a lot easier to plate or put in a salad. Actually, I like that idea, is like using this as like a topping. But really, really nice. And if you know, once you cut through that, you have the like really nice sort of orange interior there. And they're delicious like that. Or you can serve it with like some yogurt. I just had this lying around. So a little bit of or sour cream. This is just some yogurt with a little bit of apple cider vinegar and parsley on the side. But those are our pumpkin croquettes. Thank you. Yeah.